this. I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for this. Hi, I'm Abby. I have a lot of records, and this is a very special episode of Vinyl Monday. This is the big one.
11.
So welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time here. Vinyl Monday is the series where once a week I sit down and just talk about albums that I love. And this week we're talking about the album that I love the most. I always knew I was gonna cover this one, I just didn't know how or when. I actually intended for this album to be the first episode of Vinyl Monday, but now, a year into the whole Vinyl Monday thing, I started this over on my Instagram. I feel I've nailed down what Vinyl Monday is really all about. I've worked out the formula, and I feel like I can finally give this record the thorough deep dive that it deserves. I feel like I'm finally capable of doing this behemoth of a record justice. So without further ado, this week's record is Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs by Derek and the Dominoes. Can't get emotional yet. I mean, was it really ever going to be any other record than this one? I've named my website after it. I talk about it ad nauseum on said website, and this is literally my profile picture here on YouTube. It is me edited into this album art, which I actually need a new version of now because I have bangs, and one of my exes did that profile picture. This really was hiding in plain sight all along. The hint was always there. Alright, let's take the plastic off. And my copy right here is, well, this is a repress, and it's one of my 4 copies of Layla. So this is a record that I pick up every single time I see it, because I love it that much. This one that you're seeing right here is a repress. I've got 2 originals on Atco, and I won't be spending too much time on this because it isn't vinyl, but I do happen to have the 20th anniversary Layla Sessions CD box set. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to be showing off this repress because I know you guys like seeing minty records. I know what the vinyl community on YouTube is like, and this is the closest I've got to a minty copy of Layla. The originals get a little muddy in some spots. That could also be a symptom of the less than perfect condition that they're in, but this really nice copy, the mix was really nice on this one. So let's talk about this iconic cover art. The art that you see on the front cover of Layla is a painting called La Fille de Bouquet by Emile Theodore Fransden de Schoenberg. I hope I pronounced that right. So sorry if I got it wrong, Emile. While the Dominoes were staying at Emile Fransden, the younger, the son's house in France, there was an egg fight at the house. He took all of the guys from Derek and the Dominoes out on a tour of his father's studio, and that is where La Fille de Bouquet was residing at the time. Eric Clapton, the leader of Derek and the Dominoes, of course, Derek is Eric, he saw this painting in the studio and decided at once that he must have this for the cover of his next record. On the original, let me whip one out for you. On the original, you have no other text, and there's no mention of Eric Clapton's name or the group's name, and that was very intentional. Eric Clapton didn't want anything on this record that could tie it directly to him. He didn't want any of these records to sell purely because of Eric Clapton being on it. And I think that's a kind of a cool choice. This decision had such a striking effect, really. We'll get to how this decision about the cover affected my consumption of Layla much later in this video. Yeah, this is gonna be a long episode of Vinyl Monday. You're welcome, and I'm sorry. Should've known what y'all were getting into. Clapton owned La Fille de Bouquet at some point. he might still own it, and the woman who this record is about definitely owns a copy of this painting. We will get to her importance to this album and who she is very soon. I will admit, though, I'm not totally sure of the original painting's provenance. It is notoriously difficult to track down. Opening up the gatefold, sorry my corner's cut on this one, you see lots of snaps from the studio while the Dominoes were working on this record, including one very famous face. We'll get to his involvement with this record. And on the back cover, we have the group's name, we have the album title, we have the track listing, and we have some very sparse liner notes. I have searched high and low for who took the photographs on the inside of the gatefold and the back cover and haven't found a definitive answer. If you know, throw it in the comments. I would love to know. Now that I've given you a rundown of the Layla art, I get to tell you the story of Layla, or as I phrase it, how a southern rock duo accidentally manifested a Beatles divorce. Let's get into this. So it's 1969. Eric Clapton's previous group, Blind Faith, has just dissolved, or rather imploded upon itself, and Eric Clapton is looking to form another band. In the meantime, he's playing with Delaney and Bonnie and Friends. Delaney and Bonnie being married couple Delaney and Bonnie, and the Friends being Bobby Whitlick, Carl Radle, and Jim Gordon. At this point, Eric Clapton's bestie is Eric is buddies with George Harrison of the Beatles, and Eric actually gets George to play with Delaney and Bonnie and Friends a few times. Flash forward to April of 1970, and George Harrison is recording his post-Beatles debut, All Things Must Pass. He's done a couple soundtracks before this, but not an earnest solo studio album. And as it so happens, the friends of Delaney and Bonnie and Friends are playing on All Things Must Pass too. It is the recording of All Things Must Pass that solidifies the core lineup of Derek and the Dominoes. Here is where Harrison set off the domino effect, or rather, the Derek and the Domino effect, that would end his marriage to one Pattie Boyd. At the height of her career, Pattie Boyd was a British fashion model in leagues with Jean Shrimpton and Twiggy. She met George Harrison on the set of A Hard Day's Night, and they married in 1966. It's worth noting her startling resemblance to the woman in La Fille de Bouquet, and, well, I had to do it, okay? You guys don't leave me alone with this comparison on Instagram. I had to. So there are at least 3 songs about Pattie Boyd already. There's I Need You off of Help, For You Blue off of Let It Be, and It's All Too Much. You could also make a compelling case for the song Something being about Pattie Boyd. I personally think it's about her. George would insist that, oh, it wasn't about my wife, it was about, like, all of the Beatle wives, and this general feeling. But, like, buddy, who else would that song have been about? As a model, your career is essentially over by 25, unless you're a nepotism baby, or you just look really young, then maybe you could stretch it to, 26, 27 if you're lucky. But at this point, Pattie's career as a model is waning. When she retired, she thought she could ease into being a housewife and a mother, but George and Pattie were struggling to have children. George was also diving headlong into the whole Hare Krishna thing. Pattie wasn't quite so into it as George was. I can't imagine she was thrilled about suddenly having a bunch of Hare Krishnas around and being expected to feed them all. All in all, Their marriage would have unraveled with or without Eric Clapton. If you ask me, I just think Clapton expedited the process. A mutual friend of Eric and Pattie's gives Eric a book called The Story of Majnun and Layla by Nizami. It's basically Romeo and Juliet, but way sadder. And then Eric writes Pattie this. Dear Layla, for nothing more than the pleasures past, I would sacrifice my family, my God, and my own existence, and still you will not move. I am at the end of my mind. I cannot go back, and there is nothing in tomorrow, save you, that can attract me beyond today. I have listened to the wind, I have watched the dark brooding clouds, I have felt the earth beneath me for a sign, a gesture, but there is only silence. Why do you hesitate? Am I a poor lover? Am I ugly? Am I too weak? Too strong? Do you know why? If you want me, take me. I am yours. If you don't want me, please break the spell that binds me. To cage a wild animal is a sin. To tame him is divine. My love is yours. Aww. Despite his advances and entertaining his flirting, even flirting back with him, Pattie ultimately turned Eric down. Eric is lonely and heartbroken with a chip on his shoulder, and he feels like he's got something to prove, both as a musician, as a potential band leader, and as a lover. He's been connected to some incredible players through Delaney and Bonnie and through recording for his Love Rivals album. You don't get much more dramatic than that. Meanwhile, he's just discovered a text that is the very thesis of all of the feelings he is feeling for the one woman in the whole world who he wants but cannot have. It is truly a perfect storm. Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs is born. The Derek and the Dominoes lineup consists of Eric Clapton on vocals and guitar, Bobby Whitlick on keys and backing vocals, Carl Radel on bass, and Jim Gordon on drums. This record was produced by Tom Dowd. A notable guest who isn't technically a part of the Dominoes, but it might as well be, is of course Duane fucking Allman. He plays the slide guitar on 11 of the... He plays the slide guitar on 11 of these 14 tracks. Now, time to talk about the other great love story that went into Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs. This is the story of when Eric met Duane. So Tom Dowd just so happened to be producing the Allman Brothers' second record, and everybody just so happened to be in Miami at the same time. This story goes a few different ways depending on who tells it, but it almost always begins with Eric Clapton listening to and being a huge fan of Duane Allman's solo on Wilson Pickett's recording of Hey Jude, which I have right here. One of my subscribers sent me this actually. So Paul, this is a different Paul from the Paul who sent me my last vinyl haul. We'll call him 45s Paul, since he sent me a whole box of 45s. Thank you, 45s Paul. Woo! Like I said, depending on who tells the story, the meeting between Eric Clapton and Duane Allman goes a little bit differently. The most entertaining version of the story comes from Bobby Whitlick. The way Bobby remembers it is Eric and the rest of the Dominoes went to a small show that the Allman Brothers were playing. It was only a couple hundred people in the audience, and the Allman Brothers were playing on a flatbed trailer. Somehow, Eric had gotten underneath the trailer, and there were gaps in between the wood, and he was just like under there looking up at Duane playing. Duane is doing his thing, he's got his mouth open while he's soloing, and he looks down, and who does he see staring up at him through the gaps in the wood of the trailer but Eric fucking Clapton. He stops, as I'm sure anybody would. I certainly would panic if I looked down and saw Eric Clapton staring up at me through the floor, and he is just shocked. So then one of the other guys comes over and is like, what's going on over here? Looks down, sees Eric Clapton, and he also stops. But the most likely version of the story is that Tom and Eric went to an Allman Brothers show that they were playing at a civic center, and Duane looks up from playing and sees Eric Clapton in the front row. However it happened, Eric and Duane meet after the show and totally fanboy over each other. The guys met Duane on the 26th of August, they jammed all through the night, and by the 28th, recording on Layla has begun. Derek and the Dominoes had only made their debut less than 2 months actually before this at the Lyceum on June 14th, 1970. So all of this is happening in a really short realm of time. They had a really short window to record as well. They recorded at Criteria Studios in Miami from August to September 10th of 1970. They were on a really short schedule because the Dominoes had to tour and Duane was still playing shows with the Allman Brothers. So if you do some casual research into the recording of Layla, you'll see that some overdubbing was said to have been done on October 1st. I think this date is literally wrong. The Dominoes were doing gigs in Europe at this time. It would have been almost impossible for them to leave Europe, get to Miami for October 1st, record the overdubbings, and then be back in Europe for shows on October 3rd and 4th. What I actually think happened was the overdubbing was done on a larger gap of time between September 28th and 30th. Then they went back to Europe to do their shows on October 3rd and 4th. And I think somebody at the studio literally just wrote down the date wrong. But that is literally just me. While the guys are recording in Miami, Eric buys Pattie a pair of bell-bottom jeans as a souvenir. That will become relevant right about now. Hi, this is the first ever Vinyl Monday track by track breakdown. Okay, so normally in a Vinyl Monday episode, this is where I go through the track listing of the record and tell you which songs are on which sides and which discs. But today, I'm going to do sort of an annotated track listing. I'm going to go through all of the songs on Layla and talk just a little smidgen about each one of them. So the album starts off with I Looked Away. This is a shorter song to kind of get you into the groove of the record, and it's kind of the thesis statement of Layla in a way. The line that sells I Looked Away as being the thesis of Layla is, "Seems a sin to love another man's woman." I don't think it gets any more obvious than that, folks. Then we have Bell Bottom Blues. This is the song that's named for the jeans that Eric bought Pattie while he was in Miami with the Dominoes. This song cycles through a lot of emotions. Unwavering affection, heartache, desperation, and maybe even a little bit of bitterness at Clapton's circumstances. Kind of reads as like going through the 5 stages of grief after you've been broken up with or you've just broken up with somebody. Bell Bottom Blues is pretty groveling, I would say. The only lines that really are assertive in any way, and even like bordering on vaguely threatening, are, "We're surely gonna meet again, and if you do, don't you be surprised if you find me with another lover." Clapton actually did take up this threat, but that comes later. A total contrast to the, throwing yourself on the floor and wailing about your lover that is Bell Bottom Blues is the next song, Keep On Growing. And closing out side A of the album is our first blues standard. The Dominoes do a cover of Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out. I talked last week on Vinyl Monday about Deja Vu by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, and how that album has a really strong 4-song opener. As I was examining Layla for like the millionth time for this episode, I realized that I Looked Away, Bell Bottom Blues, Keep on Growing, and Nobody Knows You is a really strong 4-song opener. You have the thesis of the whole record, I Love My Best Friend's Wife. Then you have Bell Bottom Blues, I miss her and I don't know what to do because I can't have her, so what if I go find somebody else? Hey, that threat should make her love me. Then we have Keep on Growing, which is elation, a lot more optimistic, and then of course we have Clapton and the Blues with Nobody Knows You. Opening up side B, we have I Am Yours. The lyrics for I Am Yours are taken from a poem in The Story of Majnun and Layla by Nizami. All of these lyrics actually come from the Nizami poem. There is no wind but wafts your scent to me. There sings no bird but calls your name to me. Aww. I Am Yours has got some really dense ascending vocal harmonies. Everybody's notes are packed really closely together, so if anyone is just slightly out of key, the whole song would just fall right apart. Then we have The Curious Case of Any Day. We were talking and I thought I heard you say, please leave me alone. There's nothing in this world that could make me stay. I'd rather go back home. Okay, so I have a theory about Any Day. I am almost certain that this song is Eric's point of view from a pretty tense altercation that Pattie described in her book Wonderful Tonight. George and Pattie are at a party at Eric's house. George catches Eric and Pattie in mid-conversation, presumably flirting with each other, and George gets pissed. He puts his foot down and says, okay, Pattie, so are you staying here with Eric or are you coming home with me? That's not very Hare Krishna of you now, is it, George? George made Pattie decide who she'd rather be with, him or Eric, on the spot. And Pattie went home with George that night. I've heard people say that this altercation inspired I Looked Away, but if you look at the lyrics and you consider the general tone of the song, I think that the true song about this incident is Any Day. This song also features such scathing lines as, break the glass and twist the knife into yourself. You gotta be a fool to understand. To bring your woman back home when she's left you for another, you gotta be a man. Woo! Taking a swing at George! Ooh! The ice on that 3rd-degree burn is Key to the Highway, another cover of a blues standard. So, Key to the Highway sticks out like a sore thumb on this record because it's the only song that fades in, and this is why. So the Dominoes cut Key to the Highway on August 30th. Tom Dowd had very specific orders to always keep the reels going, to basically never stop recording, especially while they were jamming. But for one reason or another, on August 30th during the jams, the tapes were shut off. Tom Dowd is in the bathroom, right? He hears the guys breaking into Key to the Highway, and he comes running out of there shouting, turn up the faders, turn up the faders. And that's why we get a fade in on Key to the Highway. And to think if Dowd was taking a shit instead, we might not have gotten Key to the Highway on this record. This is the longest song on the album at just over 9 minutes in length, and it closes out side B/disc 1 of Layla. Opening disc 2, we have Tell the Truth, which was inspired by the R&B duo Sam and Dave. That's why we get that awesome call and response between Clapton and Bobby Whitlock on this song. And this track went through a lot of changes. This song was actually written During the All Things Must Pass sessions, there is a version out there of Tell the Truth recorded at Abbey Road Studios with Clapton, the rest of the Dominoes, and George Harrison. And that version was produced by Phil Spector. Tell the Truth changed hands to be fully the Dominoes, however, probably around when the final track listing of All Things Must Pass was being assembled, and it was meant to be Derek and the Dominoes' first single. That is the version that you hear on this History of Eric Clapton compilation album. This becomes very important later. This initial Tell the Truth was very up-tempo, but the version that they went with on Layla is a lot more relaxed. It doesn't rush as much, in my opinion. Tell the Truth is followed by the most up-tempo song on Layla, which is Why Does Love Gotta Be So Sad? After the almost 10-minute Key to the Highway and Tell the Truth. Those two songs, you kind of get to put your feet up, relax, enjoy the journey. But Why Does Love Gotta Be So Sad? Shocks the senses right back into you. We are back in gear, baby. This is a shorter song on the record, coming in less than 5 minutes in length. And it goes so fast that you might miss some lyrics if you're not really intently listening to what Clapton is saying. There are some blink and you'll miss it moments on this song. One of my personal favorite lines is, "How can I ever hope to forget you? Show me a place where I can hide my lonely face. I know you're gonna break my heart if I let you." And the song also finishes off with a little nod to Joy to the World? Okay. And side C is closed with another blues cover, Have You Ever Loved a Woman? Originally by Billy Miles, but made famous by Freddie King. Clapton was a huge Freddie King fan. Have You Ever Loved a Woman is one of Clapton's strongest vocal moments on this entire record. It's almost 7 minutes in length, and the whole time Clapton is trying so hard for his voice not to break. And there's this fantastic tension created by, him fighting against his own vocal cords. And he's really spitting out the words on this one, man. And then comes side D, which is opened by a cover of Little Wing by Jimi Hendrix. This song was recorded on September 6th of 1970. And when the guys went into the studio to do this one, Bobby Whitlock didn't know the words. He had to have the lyrics written out in front of him and placed on his organ so he could harmonize with Clapton while he played. And 9 days after the guys cut their version of Little Wing, Jimi Hendrix dies at the age of 27. The music world in the late 60s and early 70s, it was a lot smaller than it is now. And pretty much everybody knew each other. I've said that multiple times on Vinyl Monday. And Clapton and Hendrix, while they weren't best friends like Clapton and George Harrison were, they knew each other. And when Hendrix died, this took a lot out of an already very emotionally fragile Eric. So with that new context, when Little Wing went onto the final track listing, it feels like sort of a friend waving a final goodbye to another friend. Little Wing is followed by It's Too Late, which is a Chuck Willis cover. There are 3 covers in a row on this record. Have You Ever Loved a Woman, Little Wing, and then It's Too Late. The Derek and the Dominoes version of It's Too Late takes a doo-wop tune and puts it in a great country swing. We also have another fantastic call and response moment between Eric Clapton and Bobby Whitlock's vocals. It's worth noting that this version of It's Too Late made it to the Johnny Cash show stage, and Clapton is, I hate that I'm saying this, almost handsome in that video. almost. After the 3-minute country swing of It's Too Late, we finally get the title track, Layla. This song is in 2 halves, and not unlike Tell the Truth, it started a lot different than how we hear it on this record. Layla actually started as a ballad, but as the guys worked on it, it just got faster and faster. As Clapton performed it through the years, it just got faster and faster as well. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go listen to the Live Aid performance of Layla. Holy shit, that is fast. That signature riff in the first half was written by Duane Allman, and it's interpolated from an Albert King tune called As the Years Go Passing By. Specifically, the opening line, which I feel like Clapton really would have latched onto, "There is nothing I can do. There is nothing I can do. There is nothing I can do." Speed that up a little bit. There is nothing I can do. There is nothing I can do. Yes! Yes, that is genius! Oh my god! What makes the first half of Layla so unique is that duet between Duane Allman and Eric Clapton on that riff. You get Duane playing in his signature bottleneck slide style, and Clapton in his style, which was bending the strings. Clapton had one of the most beautiful vibratos of any guitarist ever. So when they play that riff together, they fill in the gaps in each other's playing where it sounds like one superhuman guitar player with like 12 fingers on 24 strings. It is words cannot describe. There's this video of Tom Dowd breaking down the mix of Layla, and he isolates Eric and Duane's duet with Duane's solo over it. It is essential viewing, and I lost it the first time I heard it. I just burst into tears. It was an involuntary reaction. Duane's solo still pulls at me that way. Hearing those isolated guitars for the first time, it was just so moving. Then we have the second half, which is the piano ballad. Clapton caught Jim Gordon playing this part in the studio and decided he had to have it for the end of Layla. This second part was recorded, I think, 3 weeks after the first half, making the first half and the second half in entirely different mixes. They're essentially 2 different songs, so you need 2 different mixes for them. That piano part, in and of itself, was lifted from a composition by Rita Coolidge, who was Jim Gordon's girlfriend at the time. Layla evolved quite a bit before getting on the final track listing, and it evolved quite a bit afterwards as well. I mentioned briefly the Live Aid performance of Layla from the 80s. Like I said, Live Aid Layla is fast, but the couple tweaks to it, like the added guitar lines in the second movement of the song, they make it more triumphant. Eric Clapton is on top of the world, he finally got the girl, and he is on so many drugs. And then we have 90s Layla, the acoustic Layla, the MTV Unplugged Layla. Clapton stopped playing Layla electric for a while in the 90s. It slowed down, he's a lot more confident in his guitar playing, but it feels mournful, and that is because Clapton had lost the girl by this time. Layla's evolution from the 70s to the 80s and finally to the 90s is the ultimate microcosm of the state of Eric and Pattie's love. And finally, closing out Layla and other assorted love songs, you have Thorn Tree in the Garden, which was written and sung by Bobby Whitlock. This song is actually about a neighbor slash, I guess, somebody who was house sitting for Bobby who gave Bobby's dog away. I guess having and losing love is the same across pets, things, careers, friends, lovers. It's all the same, really. And the album closes with the line, "Maybe someday soon, some way." And that is Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs. I'm not going to say a whole lot about the 20th anniversary version. You get a lot of jams on here, and you get a couple songs that were shopped around for the final track listing, but ultimately dropped. These two songs were When Things Go Wrong With You, It Hurts Me Too, and Mean Old World. Alright, so Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs. It's released in November of 1970. This whole thing is a declaration of love from Eric Clapton to his forbidden love, and surely things go well, right? 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 This is the release of Layla, or rather, the fallout. Clapton poured all of his blood, sweat, and tears into what is arguably his masterpiece, and guess what? It failed. Miserably. Commercially, it flopped. Layla was shortened to a 3-minute long song as opposed to 7 minutes for radio play, and people wrote it off as just another rock song. Hell, they had to do the whole Derek is Eric thing just to get people to listen to it. Critically, it was written off as a bunch of fluff. Clapton tried in vain to get a second Derek and the Dominoes record out, but the morale was wavering. Personalities were beginning to clash. Somewhere along the line, Eric starts using, and plans for a second Dominoes record officially collapse when, in October of 1971, Duane Allman dies at just 24 years old in a motorcycle accident. For a little bit of perspective, I'm 23. Duane was only a year older than me. That is horrifying. And Clapton didn't get the girl. Yet. If I ever cover Dark Horse or Slowhand on this channel, we might get into that chapter of the Clapton-Boyd love story, but for now, he's failed. All of these factors exacerbated a really dark time in Clapton's life. He descends further and further into his drug abuse, and it doesn't get much better for the other guys. Carl Radle died of an overdose in 1980, and Jim Gordon killed his mom and is spending the rest of his life in prison for it. In the years following all of the muck going on with Derek and the Dominoes, Layla would eventually be recognized for how good it was through a Duane Allman tribute compilation and through History of Eric Clapton. The full 7-minute version of Layla was released on both the Duane Allman anthology and on this compilation record. But in the wake of Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs' release, Layla ruined Eric Clapton. It ruined the Dominoes' relationships with each other. It ruined George and Pattie's marriage. And it ruined Pattie's relationship with her sister. Not Jennifer Juniper, the other one. What every other person reviewing Layla will fail to inform you is that while Eric Clapton was writing and recording this great profession of love to Pattie Boyd, Eric was dating her 16-year-old sister, Paula. When Layla came out, Paula was devastated, and her relationship with her sister would never totally be the same. Paula, too, would be dragged into addiction to cope with her boyfriend, essentially using her as a placeholder for the one woman in the world he couldn't have, who happened to be her sister, the one woman in the world she trusted the most. Layla was a vicious hurricane that destroyed anything and everything it came into contact with. You can separate Layla from Eric Clapton, the guy, but you can't separate Layla, the work, from Eric and Pattie, the couple. Does that make sense? Everyone will draw the line between art and artists differently, and I choose to see this work with nuance. Layla is a monument to a broken relationship, to two people who absolutely weren't good for each other, but this beautiful thing came out of it anyway. I know a thing or two about products of people who are absolutely not good for each other. I am a child of divorce. If I ever get famous enough to make t-shirts, I am going to make a t-shirt that just says, I am a child of divorce in big letters and some tie into the Layla art. That and these albums are too old for you, baby. Please tell me if you remember that too. Gotta make sure I don't get any feathers in my drink. So before I get into really what I think of Layla and other assorted love songs, I have just one more story to tell involving this record. And it goes a little something like this. One afternoon in January, a 19-year-old girl in glasses and Doc Martens sets off in her dad's work truck. Our noble ingenue's quest is to buy an entire record collection from this guy in town who her mom knew from work. The nice man she met at the address provided had been around for all the interesting stuff. He'd seen the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and he'd bought all the great albums the weekend they came out. And here all of these albums were, sitting in an unfinished basement like the freaking Holy Grail. He asks her, do you like guitarists? And she's like, yeah, I guess. And he tells her to pay attention to one name, Eric Clapton. She's clueless. But I guess something about her naivete charmed the old guy because she walked away with that entire record collection all packed up into her dad's work truck, completely filling the bed and spilling into the cabin she had to ride with a stack in her lap like this. She walked away with the whole thing for free. She came with the intention of buying it, and she just got it all for free. As soon as she gets home, she starts rifling through all these boxes to see, okay, what the hell did I even agree to picking up? She agreed to grabbing this whole collection on one condition. There were Beatles records, and there were Simon and Garfunkel records. Spoiler alert, neither of those were in any of those boxes, but there was Zeppelin, there was Steve Miller Band, there was classic era King Crimson, there was early Fleetwood Mac, everything under the sun. There was Pink Floyd, Bob Dylan, Three Dog Night, the Rolling Stones. And it gets to the point where she's just keeping stuff because it looks cool. Because she actually doesn't know any of these people that she's seeing on these albums. And she finds this mustard yellow cover. A painting of a woman with platinum blonde hair, blue eyeshadow, and red lipstick. And half the face is covered by a bouquet of flowers. It's a painting, so she figures why not? Keeps the album around. Picture this. You've just received hundreds of albums that you've never listened to before, for free, from this guy you barely know. You don't know who Eric Clapton is. You don't know a lot about George Harrison. You certainly don't know who George Harrison was married to. And you definitely don't know how this Eric Clapton guy knew a Beatle. And then you put Layla and other assorted love songs on your little turntable. That kid listened to the title track 3 times in a row that night. That is 21 unbroken minutes of Layla. Now, there's this moment in the title track, 2 minutes and 3 seconds in. It is a blink and you'll miss it moment. But there is this full-bodied wail that falls out of the song's time. The name's been repeated so many times, but it's this one. This. It's the sound of infatuation descending into madness. This is the cry of unrequited love, and it was now seared into my 19-year-old brain forever. That kid was me, and Layla, that night, Layla fucking broke me. There is life before Layla, and there is life after Layla, and there's no going back. I kept this album because of the cover. Because it didn't have a title, didn't have a band name on it. There was nothing attaching it to anybody. It may have taken 49 years, but goddamn, Eric Clapton's plan worked. Discovering this album, I am not joking. I am not over-exaggerating in any way. Discovering this album permanently altered the course of my life. It's the reason that I got into pretty much all the music that I got into. It's the reason why I dress the way I do. It's the reason I write about music. This is why I started Vinyl Monday a year ago. That night, when I first listened to Layla, that was the night that music became more than music. As for the music itself, I think this was the best Clapton ever was. I really do. He would never write or sing or play with this fire ever again. Except for Devil Road. But Devil Road is not a can of worms I am opening today. This video is long enough! The lyricism is top-notch. Clapton and Whitlock really outdid themselves on the original tracks. I would point out my favorite lyrics, but I kinda already have. I will say, you have to be prepared to sit down and sit through some long songs. This is a blues rock record, there's lots of jams, pack your patience. But there are some fun nuggets on here for people who are willing to pack their patience and sit through these songs for the very end, like the guitar noodling on Tell the Truth, and the Joy to the World on Why Does Love Gotta Be So Sad. I feel like somebody lost a bet for that to make it onto the album. Duane Allman really was Clapton's perfect partner on this record. I feel like Clapton was best when he had somebody he deeply respected and who could actually challenge him. And Duane was that. Tom Dowd is God. Maybe Clapton was God once upon a time, but right here, Tom Dowd is God. His work producing Layla it's landmark. It is a landmark achievement. If it weren't for Tom Dowd, Duane Allman, and Bobby fucking Whitlock, we would not still be talking about this record today. Bobby Whitlock is the MVP of this record. All other backing vocalists take notes. Whitlock is the backbone of this album. When I sing along to the songs on Layla, I'm not singing Eric's parts. I'm singing Bobby's parts. That moment, 2 minutes and 3 seconds into Layla, the track, that moment that just broke me the first time I heard it, that wasn't Eric singing, that was Bobby. Bobby has been hugely influential on my vocal styling, actually. Some critique Layla for not having a centered enough narrative, but the key with this record is to view it like a film with an A plot and a B plot. The A plot is Clapton pining and grieving for his love for Pattie. And the B plot is Clapton's exploration of blues guitar playing, which he's done through his entire career, and arguably was best on Layla. The songs on the A plot are, stuff like I Looked Away, Any Day, Tell the Truth, Layla, and the B plot is stuff like, Nobody Knows You, Key to the Highway, Why Does Love Gotta Be So Sad, Have You Ever Loved a Woman, It's Too Late, and the two themes unite on Bell Bottom Blues, and the track that I really think breaks the fourth wall, Have You Ever Loved a Woman. The covers work well alongside the originals to a startling degree. This is most effective with It's Too Late. I thought It's Too Late was an original until about 10 months ago when I learned, oh my god, this is a cover of a doo-wop song. As for the Tedeschi Trucks Band recording of this album, please don't kill me for saying this, it's Their Any Day is pretty good, but it goes on for about 3 minutes too long, and the rest of it feels stiff. I'm sorry. Please don't come for me. Knowing the 20th anniversary mixes, I have a love-hate relationship with these babies, just like any fan of Layla does. The only one I can confidently say I prefer over the originals mix, that was my wrist cracking, The only one I can say I honestly prefer is Keep On Growing, and that is purely for this moment, which got covered up in the original mix, and that is this. It's so fun! Why did they get rid of it? If anything, it's interesting to hear in the 20th anniversary mix how Carl Radel's bass playing was pushed to the center of the mix, as opposed to here, which it's more the guitars at center. I also think I prefer 20th anniversary Thorn Tree. I don't know. I go back and forth on this like every day. I think the guys were right to re-record Tell the Truth. The original Tell the Truth that we hear on the History of Eric Clapton compilation, it feels rushed. This one, it takes its time. I like it a lot better. There really isn't a bad song on this album, but side D is the strongest. When you've listened through all of Layla, you get to this point at about side D where every song feels like, okay, this is it. This has got to be the emotional climax of this record. It can't get any more harrowing than this. And then the next song comes, and it does. And then the song after that comes, and it does. And finally, when Layla comes, if you're anything like me at least, it will break you. Layla needs that full 7 minutes to go on the emotional journey. I think shortening that song to 3 minutes long for the single was one of the worst calls they could have possibly made. And then Thorn Tree in the Garden is the perfect closer. Again, courtesy of Bobby Whitlock. This might just be me being me, for lack of a better term, but I always thought that the lyric was, and if I never see her face again, I never hold her hand, and if she's in somebody's arms, I think I'd understand. I always thought it was, I think I'd understand, and not, I know I'd understand. And I wanted it to be, I think I'd understand, because that leaves the door open. It makes the ending of this record less depressing, and, maybe I think I'd understand was just my brain filling in that blank because I know how this album turned out. Layla is a lesson in humanity. That we always want what we cannot have, and when we do have it, we rarely know what to do with it, and we squander it, and once again, it is no longer ours. This, I can confidently say, is one of the greatest rock albums ever recorded, but take that with a hefty grain of salt because this is also my favorite. Well, that was Layla. And that marks the end of season 1 of Instagram Vinyl Monday. It's been a long road. I want to give a huge thank you to everybody who's watched Vinyl Monday since the very beginning, who believed in this concept when it was 30-second clips on Instagram. You guys believed in the potential that this concept had. You're the reason that Vinyl Monday ever made it to YouTube, that it's become what it is. It's actually actively becoming what it is. I see so much more potential in Vinyl Monday, and I'm not going to stop anytime soon, and that is because of all of you original viewers, so thank you so much for believing in me and believing in this. Thank you to my buddy Michael for urging me to start the whole Vinyl Monday thing in the first place, and thank you for holding up the lamp in episode 3 or 4. I don't remember the episode, but I remember you holding the lamp. I want to thank Dan for giving me his old record collection from the late 60s and early 70s. This right here was the copy of Layla that he gave me in that collection. I've heard people say this about the White Album, that you could lay out 100 White Album covers on a table, and any collector would always be able to point out their White Album. If you did this with copies of Layla, if you set out 100 copies of Layla in front of me, I would always pick out this one because this one was mine. Dan, I got your copy of Layla in near mint condition, and now it's beat to shit. I've retired this from play. I can't play it anymore. I've replaced it 3 times, but even though this copy is retired, I will never, ever get rid of this. Thank you for inadvertently changing the course of the rest of my life by giving me this copy of Layla. I don't know how I could ever fully express my gratitude for that. Thank you, Trevin, for being the first person to see my potential as a muse. I love you. You're gonna get that album out, come hell or high water, and all of the people watching this are finally gonna be able to hear all of the wonderful songs that you've written about me. Yes, even the song that you wrote about me when you were angry because I rejected you, that is your best song, and I think this is me saying you should fast track that song's release. Sorry. Thank you, Duane Allman, for your indelible contributions to Layla. Rest in peace, Skydog. I want to thank the following: Bobby Whitlick, Carl Radel, Jim Gordon, and Tom Dowd. Without the 4 of you, the Layla vision would never have come to fruition. Rest in peace, Tom Dowd, and Carl, I hope the peace which evaded you in life has found you in death. Thank you, Delaney and Bonnie Bramlett, for accidentally forming Derek and the Dominoes, and thank you, Rita Coolidge, for your contribution to the title track. I'm really sorry that you had to find out about it the way that you did, and I hope one day you get the full writing credits that you deserve. I want to thank Emile Theodore Fransden de Schoenberg for contributing La Fille de Bouquet, and I want to thank Emile the Younger for throwing the eggs and leading Clapton to discovering this painting. I want to thank Layla herself, Pattie Boyd, muse to the greats, style icon. I read your book, and that was a life-changing experience as well. I hope to get your second book in the fall. Hell, thank you, George Harrison. And thanks, Eric Clapton? I mean, I guess. So, what do you think of Layla and other assorted love songs? Leave a comment letting me know. I love to hear what you have to say about the music that I love. And if you like what I do here, you should like this video and subscribe. I post new episodes of Vinyl Monday every Monday morning at 11 a.m. except for next week. Yeah, guys, seeing as I've been non-stop on Vinyl Monday for a year now, I am taking a much-deserved week-long break. Thank you all so much for watching this very special episode of Vinyl Monday, and I'll be seeing you in 2 weeks. Bye!